In this video, you're going to learn how to do a linear regression on the TI-84 calculator. So the first thing we should do is check to see if we've got the calculator mode correct. You can see a couple things is that we have what's called the stat wizard, which we should turn on because that will be helpful. And it says stat diagnostic. We'll turn this on as well so the calculator will give us our correlation coefficient. You can go to the stat button and then edit. And looks like I already have some data in there. So quick way to get rid of that is to go to second memory, and you'll see number 4 is clear all lists. So get that command, perform it, and now when we go back to our stat editor, we'll see there's nothing left in there. So now we're ready to put our data in. It's a little more efficient to type in all of the x values first, since the cursor automatically moves downward when you hit enter. And here's a little trick. If you hit the right cursor button, it goes right back up to the y values. You'll notice that I didn't even bother putting the x values in order. Doesn't really matter. Calculator will take care of it anyways. Let's review how to actually see this data plotted in a scatter plot. We'll hit second stat plot, and first thing we need to do is make sure that one of our stat plots are on. So I'll hit enter, and that gets us into plot 1. I'll hit on, and I also make sure that I've got my X list in L1 and my Y list in list number 2. A quick way to get the window where we want it is to use the zoom stat option, which is actually number 9. I'll show you there, zoom stat. And you hit enter and everything's nice and set. Now I don't really know what all these scales are, but at least I can see my points. Next, let's find our line of best fit. This is a statistics function, so I'll press stat, but it's a calculation, so I'll go over to the calc menu, and you'll see that we actually have a variety of different regressions we can do, but we're doing the linear regression, so that's number 4. And we have our stat wizard, which makes this pretty easy. We just want to make sure again that we have the values for x in our first column, our first list, values for y in the second list. So we'll go through that. The next one, frequency list, is used for something else, so we're just going to leave that blank. Another thing we can do is to store the equation that we get into our equation editor, and that's going to allow us to graph it. To say that we want to store this, I'm going to hit alpha F4, and we'll go ahead and go with Y1, and that will store our equation in there. And then we'll go down to calculate and let it do its job. The equation is given to us in the form of y equals mx plus b, although the m, the slope, is given here as an a instead. And we see we get this long value, decimal value here. But of course what we're going to do is round that off. So we would round that to say 2.30. This would be negative 3.07. So our equation would be y equals 2.30x minus 3.07. We also have a correlation coefficient value given to us. Looks pretty good. 1 would be a perfect line. Let's take a look at it. By the way, you'll see that the equation is actually in here. Fortunately, you can't see the whole thing because of all those decimals, but there's the x, and then minus the 3.07, and so on. Hit graph, and there we go. We got a nice line. Looks like it fits pretty well. Perhaps I'd like to see the y-intercept, so I'll have to change my window to do that. We know we need x minimum at 0. The y minimum will have to go below where our y-intercept is, so let's just go to, say, -5. and we'll try graph again, and there we can see the y-intercept. Let's say that we'd like to do some interpolation or extrapolation. There's actually a pretty easy way to do this. What we can do is do another calculation, second calc for the graph, and we'll just hit number 1 for value. Now the calculator will actually ask us for an input value. So let's say I want to find out what's happened at 4.5, so I'll type that in. And that automatically enters it into the equation, and I can see that my output is 7.27. Let's say we'd like to do some extrapolation. So I'll just go ahead and type in another number, let's say 19, and I'll hit enter, and we get an error message. And let me go back to go-to, so it brings us back to where we were. The reason this happened is because it will only extrapolate if I can see the graph. So I'm going to go back to window and make sure that my x maximum goes beyond that. So I'll just put 25 in there. And of course now we can see more of the line, but at this point I can go to second calc value, and then I'll put my 19 in again, and sure enough I can get my output value. So that's about it. Go back and review more if you need to, but that's how you get your linear regression on the TI-84 calculator.